The Simone Feiler podcast, giving authors a platform. Welcome to the podcast.
Juliane Cowan joins me on the Simone Feiler podcast today. Juliane is the co-author of The Last 1% and Nail It, which she wrote with Trevor Farmer, who I chatted with on my podcast a little while ago, my last podcast. Both Juliane and Trevor worked together with me here at Brisbane Audiobook Production to create their fabulous audiobooks. And Trevor mentioned that Juliane is the technical side to Trevor's people empowering side. So we'll find out more about that and a whole bunch more as we chat with Juliane in the podcast. Welcome.
Hi, Simone. I am so excited to be here and have this chat with you.
Ditto, very excited. It's been, such fun working with you to create both of your audiobooks from my end, and the content is so enlightening, so informative, and has given me a lot to think about, very empowering. But how did you enjoy the process working with me to create your audiobooks, Juliane?
Oh, Simone. So I don't have to tell you, we had a few speed bumps in the beginning that were completely on our end, and what I loved, Simone, and I would thank you for sincerely, is how you handled that for us, because we are regional remote, and that often provides lots of challenges in relation to plugging into professionals and what it then costs us and all that sort of thing. And you, helped us navigate that beautifully. And when things didn't quite come together the way we hoped, look, the way you were able to pivot and just help us navigate that to come out the other end with a product that we love, it was fantastic. So Thank you. Thank you for that.
My pleasure. Well, you'd already recorded The Last 1% at a different studio and then went into a different studio. There were those technical problems with the audio, but we salvaged it, and I think you guys did a great narration. I mean, you're both very engaging throughout your audiobook, and like I said, the content is outstanding. So I'm glad that I could help you get it across the line, and it's already on, both of them are already out there on Audible and many other platforms to listen to.
Yeah, we've, The Last 1% has been in circulation since 2021, and it's been on the bucket list ever since then to get this onto audiobooks. So it's been so good to get that happen.
Yeah, fantastic. And incredibly authentic, both of them, as you've both narrated it. The writers, people love listening to the authors read their books because, there's something, a new dimension to that they can actually, hear you. I want to say feel you, but they kind of can feel you through your words that, you've written. So well done to the two of you.
Oh, thank you. I'm always personally disappointed when I download an audiobook that I really, like the content, I know it's going to be great, and then you find out that it's not the author reading it. I'm always a little bit, it's like you've missed out on an opportunity to meet them, in inverted commas.
Yeah, very true. That's why I love my job. How good is my job? I get the authors reading their books to me. I've got the best job in the world. Yeah. I love it. Okay, so I just mentioned in my intro chat that chatting with Trevor, he said that you're the technical brain behind the organisation, which has been Topcatz, but you guys are transitioning to living courageously now, but more on that shortly. But how do you define your role in, your partnership, Juliane, with Trevor?
So Trevor's christened me the systems queen within our organisation, because I very definitely, I make sense of the world through systems, and that's just how my brain works. And Trevor probably doesn't even know how to spell the word system. So that's that. When we met, Simone, we met through the business of networking, and we were working in that leadership space because it's all about developing leaders if you want to do well within that industry. And Trevor ran a lot of leadership training, and I was involved in that. And from the get-go, I saw that he had this incredible ability to develop leaders. And I call it, what I've coined is he has this fierce love for people. And it's through this fierce love that he, draws them in and really helps build them into, their full capacity. So, empowering them in whatever area they needed to be empowered.
That's such a great skill, to be able to help people like that.
And I would say it's very rare.
Yeah.
And I say that with a bit of authority because I have had the good fortune to travel and to be in the company of some fabulous leaders over the years and be involved in a lot of training and education. And that sort of leadership, that sort of coaching ability is incredibly rare. So we became great friends. All of this was formed on the back of a beautiful friendship. And I came to Trevor on the back of an idea that was percolating in my head. And that idea was, I think that we can form up what I saw him doing, what I saw him delivering, and how he was delivering it to people. And that we could package it into a program that we could absolutely take out into any industry because it's all about people. And, when you fundamentally understand people and how they work, how they think, what motivates them, what some of the challenges are, you can really take that into any industry and make a huge difference in the lives of people. So it was with that. It was with that. So I suppose I took a system to Trevor and said, listen, I think we can do this. And in true Trevor form, because he so we talk about gifts in one of the programs that we do, and we do a gift assessment with people, and we really plug people into what we call their innate giftedness. Now, Trevor has the gift of extraordinary trust, which is an incredible gift to have in that you are prepared to take risks and you are prepared to make a decision without knowing all the information. And good entrepreneurs will have to have the gift of extraordinary trust because they can just take action and they talk about, they just have this knowing and off they go. And Trevor absolutely has the primary gift of extraordinary trust. And so he's not interested in the detail. Don't bog him down in the system. Let's go. And so that is absolutely how Topcatz was formed, was a partnership between Trevor and myself. And I too have always had a real interest in and fascination in neuroscience and psychology, and most of it came from my upbringing. So I'm from agriculture. Yeah. And still in agriculture. So in my other life, I am the mother to 4 children and married to a beautiful man, and we live on a property that I jokingly refer to as being centrally located in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, pretty much is, we are right?
450 kilometres from Cairns to the east. We are 450 kilometres south to Charters Towers, or southeast to Townsville, and then we are about 450 kilometres west to Hewenden.
Wow.
That's where we live. So I have always had roots in agriculture. Grew up on a property around Mount Surprise, still in the far North Queensland area. And I say to everyone, Simone, growing up rurally in agriculture can be one of the most amazing places to grow up as a child, because the independence, the experiences you garner.
You would have been driving a car nice and early, I guess.
Oh, absolutely. But here's the thing. When you grow up in a remote location and there are mental health issues within the family, it can also be one of the most toxic, traumatic experiences to grow up around, because you are isolated. You are isolated, and that is your normal. And unfortunately, that was the reality. So now that I know what I know, I can look back and see that my dad, had he ever been assessed, would have been assessed as being chronically depressed.
Right.
And I would say he suffered from that his whole adult life.
Right.
And because of isolation, because of probably the time that it was, mental health wasn't on people's radar.
No.
And when you live in an isolated and particularly rural, remote environment, everyone prides themselves on being resilient and, being able to push through. And so
like the she'll be right type of attitude.
Absolutely. And so there was no help ever sought for Dad, and we walked around on eggshells because of that all of our young life until we left for boarding school. Right. And so
have you got siblings? Was it just your mum and your dad and your immediate family?
Yes. So I had a younger sister, and there are also two older sisters, but they'd sort of already left. They were much older than us, and they really never lived with us when we were younger. But I think it was that experience that really fueled my interest and my desire to ensure that never happened for either myself or my children, because that's the big thing, I think, is when you get married and start your own family, you really, life takes on a whole new perspective.
Yes.
And about the time that I had our the first of our 4 children, I realised that if I didn't do some study and I didn't understand a lot of things about how the brain worked and some neuroscience and psychology, you are very much destined to repeat your experience, because that's our mentorship. That's what creates our subconscious mind, Simone. And you know what? All of those experiences when we were young are not our fault. But as adults, it is our responsibility to ensure that we heal and we understand, and that we break the cycle. We break the cycle for that next generation. There was no way my children were ever going to have to live around what we experienced, because I know the struggles that sets you up for as an adult. And, there's a lot of things that you have to unlearn.
Yeah. Well, you guys definitely point that out in both of your books. But how did you first realise, A, that was the situation with your dad, and that B, that you were never going to be like that? So what were the first steps you took, or how did it first, come upon you?
So awareness and education. So the first awareness is when you leave home, and in our situation, you leave home at, 12 years old because you go to boarding school. So I was educated on the property. We did distance education. So again, you're in a bubble most of your life. And so this is normal. until you are 12 years old and you go to boarding school and you're introduced to the wider world and you're introduced to other families and dynamics, and suddenly because of education and awareness, you start to ask questions and you start to realize that there are other normals. And then as you transition to an adult, you can make a decision. And this is something that we as adults don't take enough responsibility for.
Yes.
Every day we get to make decisions around our life, decisions on how we're going to turn up, how we're going to communicate, how we're going to interact with each other. Every day, every moment, every minute, every hour, we get to make these decisions. And so with awareness, with education, you go forward and you make new decisions about what sort of a wife am I going to be? What sort of a mother am I going to be? And so, what are the habits and beliefs and the patterns that I've got to leave behind? And what are the habits and beliefs and patterns I've got to create to become that person? Because too often, we give our power away. It's genetics, or,
It's someone else's fault. I couldn't do it because of that person.
Yeah.
When was that first that you realized that? Was when you met Trevor? Because I've been through my own thing. I had a marriage breakup, and it devastated me, and I went to see a psychologist who gave me a little cranberry, and put it in my mouth and asked me questions about that. And then that's when it first came to my attention, probably about 10 years ago, where she helped me understand that I can make my own decisions. So I'd kind of been living under in a bubble. But yeah, that's how it first came to light for me. And then I made the decision, I'm going to start a business, and that's what I'm doing now. So was there a catalyst where it first dawned on you?
No, as I said, I think for me the journey that was education and heightened awareness certainly came with getting married and the birth of our first child. Because when you become a parent, life takes on a whole different perspective.
Very true.
And so from there, the education courses, the learning, the self-study, the introspection. And I always say, the universe brought me Trevor because consciously and unconsciously I was asking all sorts of questions. And thus, why Trevor turned up in my life. But look, I think the biggest turning point for people in their lives is when they decide to take 100% responsibility of everything in their life. Because that's a really big pill to swallow when life isn't so good.
Very true. Very true.
Really, really big pill to swallow. But I
it's
tell you what.
It is the only pill, though, isn't it?
Well, the thing is, until you do that, you are making a decision to maintain what I call the mantle. And let me tell you, some people hang on to it like their life depends on it, the mantle of victimhood. So if you are determined to blame someone, be it past, present, future, for what is happening in your life, you are choosing to hold on to the mantle of the victim. When you take full responsibility, when you take 100% responsibility for everything turning up in your life, that is when you can completely transform everything. everything. And that's the beautiful thing. So when we start talking to and working with people, when they get that, hey, I need to take 100% responsibility for everything that's happening. And so that's down to 100% responsibility for how I feel and how I think. And that's why in both of our books, Simone, the tool that we headline with, and it's the tool that we introduce to anyone who has a touch point with us, is the success ladder.
That's right.
Because if you want to change your life, if you want to change what's happening in your life and what is showing up, you have to get so hyper aware of where you are emotionally.
Yeah. Because
where you are emotionally, 80% of your day is responsible for 100% of what's showing up in your life. And a lot of people, first up, aren't aware. So it's just about asking that simple question. So you've got this little voice on your shoulder 24/7 that's talking to you all the time, that chatter. And to change that chatter, or even to silence that chatter momentarily, you use that success ladder and you ask the question, what is the feeling behind that thought? So all that chatter, they're all thoughts that are going around in your head. What is the feeling behind that thought? Because what that does is it takes you out of your limbic brain. So your limbic brain is the primitive brain, and it is primarily emotional. So it is an emotional brain. It was the main brain we used as a caveman because it was fear. So fear, we had to very quickly determine what was going to kill us and what was friendly for us. So as soon as our emotional brain is triggered, we are wired to react. And it is that reactiveness without any sort of logic, which is up the front here. So the prefrontal cortex, that's responsible for critical thinking and logic. So as soon as you ask the question, you flick yourself from your limbic emotional brain into your prefrontal cortex, and you are actually thinking more logically to start with. And so when we think logically, we can go, oh, yes, I'm angry. Like all of these thoughts, I am angry. Now, if we accept that, it bounces us straight up to acceptance on this ladder. And from that emotional energy, you are in a much better place to think logically. Because we can only think equal to how we feel. So if we're angry, the only thoughts and memories that are available to us are those related to anger. So you might be able to relate to this, Simone. So at some stage, I'm sure your husband or partner has made you angry. It happens. True. It happens sometimes. In that moment, how easy is it to remember with crystal clear clarity every time he has stuffed up, he has embarrassed you, he has let you down, you've been disappointed with him? We can recall in that moment with crystal clarity, and so that intensifies how angry and pissed off we are with our partner. But that's because when we're angry, the only memories and thoughts that are available to us are that relative to anger.
To that feeling.
So to think more productively, to think more logically, to respond better to our partners in our relationships, first and foremost, we have to own, so we have to recognize, right, I'm angry. Accept that anger, and then you are in a better place to respond, to communicate, to be more empathetic, to perhaps forgive, all of those things that we need to do to maintain good relationships. So look, whether we are working within a business organization or with a couple in a relationship, it starts with plugging them into that ladder because of what it does when you build an awareness of where you are emotionally. Once you're aware, I think it was Maya Angelou, she said, when people know better, they do better. And a lot of people, they are living their lives, I say, unconsciously.
Well, a lot of people don't even realize that you have that choice, you know what I mean? Because they're kind of just sheeping along, if you like, and not looking outside.
Well, they're in this cycle of reactivity, and that's what happens when you are a victim. When you are a victim, you are just constantly reacting. You're in your limbic brain, fight, flight, my life's in danger. And so you are reacting as caveman reacts to all of this external stimuli that is going on. And here's the piece we all need to remember, Simone. When we are in a constant state of dis-ease mentally, right? When we are in a constant state of dis-ease mentally, it will manifest in disease physically.
That's right.
And so all of these increasing health issues that we are experiencing, majority of them are rooted in our human distress. So I believe as a society, we are experiencing human distress on a critical mass, should I say, because we have cleverly created a world that we are struggling to live in. There you go.
Well, most people, but people like yourself, and I think there's an enlightening and an awakenness happening globally, that more people are understanding this concept that you're explaining. You know what I mean? That it is up to us to make those decisions, that we have a choice about what we do. We don't have to just go along with our blinkers on. We can actually make a choice, and the decisions and the choices and the things that we do on a daily basis basically manifest what's coming up in our future. So, and you guys can help people understand that.
Oh, 100%. I mean, that is the essence of our work. And a quote that we return to time and time again: when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
So true.
And when you get the power in that, like, we all have 100% control of what is happening up here, and we have to be aware that what governs what's happening up here has everything to do with our diet, how hydrated we are, how much sleep we're having. Like those three,
the things we all needed as a baby. We still need those things.
They are the essentials for human survival. We want people to thrive, but just on a physical survival level, if you are not well hydrated, if you are not getting enough sleep, you are reducing the chances that you can think clearly, that you can process what is happening logically, that you can handle emotionally what's happening. It's it's said time and time again, diet, exercise, sunlight, all of those simple things make such a huge impact to, you know, to how, to this, your brain functioning on an optimal level. And then, you know, once you've got those basic things sorted out, it is about really digging in and questioning, okay, well, what are some of the beliefs? What are some of the habits? What are some of the subconscious programs that I picked up before I was 7 years old? And some of them, you know, are adaptions because of, let's say, a traumatic environment that you had to live in, because of, you know, an environment that was toxic for any and all reasons. They were adaptions back then. They helped you survive. But now as an adult, they're actually maladaptions. They're probably preventing you from enjoying, loving, connected relationships. They're probably preventing you from achieving to your full potential professionally. And all of that can be reversed. Can, you know, the brain, the neuroplasticity that, you know, that science is proving and has proved, let's say, in the last 5 to 10 years, we have the most amazing machine up here.
Yes, we do.
And we're using it on autopilot half the time, and we're not even sure what program it's running.
That's right. That's right. Well,
So yeah, I am terribly passionate about this, and I suppose the work that I enjoy the most truly is digging in with busy working couples, because generally there are children involved, and I know that when we can improve them on a personal level, so that, you know, when we can help them sort out some of the things that are causing, you know, their own personal distress, the flow on and the impact, so first and foremost for their own relationship, but then on those children, it's, that's
incredibly rewarding.
That's what I love.
Yeah.
Absolutely love. And thus why the latest book was my passion project. So Nail It was written for the young adults of those busy working couples, because that school leaver age, so I say Nail It is really aimed at, say, a 16 to 25-year-old market. And it is designed to be that conversation that, as a parent, we all want to have with our children. And the fact that you can't have that conversation often has nothing to do with the strength of your relationship with that child. It's just that you are mum or you are dad. And at that time in their lives, you are not the person to deliver the message.
No. I'm sure all
I
parents.
know. I have 4 of those
Me
little
too. I've got
humans.
3.
I have 4 of them, and that's why I wrote the book. So I started writing it, and Trevor and I started putting it together when my oldest son was in grade 12. Because I wanted to be able to give him a book full of all of the conversations that I felt were beneficial for him, and that it was written in a language that he would read and consume and enjoy. And so that was the inference for the book. So there are a lot of common themes between the last 1% and Nail It, because we have included the fundamentals, the foundation of our work in both of those books. But truly it was to equip every parent with something, every educator, every mentor with a tool that they could hand to that young adult that gave the ability to continue to add value, to have a conversation, to remind this young person and to give them tools as they go through life that, you know, are going to stand them in good stead, because they are universal principles. Simone, I always say, anyone doing great work in the field of professional and personal development, they will be imparting a very similar message, because there are universal principles.
That's right.
That work, and they have worked for eons, and science can now explain why. But it is always the power to connect that to an individual has always got to do with the messenger. It is not so much the message. And that's what, you know, sometimes as a parent, you are not the person to deliver the message. It's got to be, at that time, somebody else for all sorts of reasons. And that's what I really hope this book is it can be the messenger for some very, very important messages for our young adults as they transition through life.
That's right. Well, it's set up from, you know, I've done the audiobook with you, and it certainly empowers them to set themselves up, like the strapline says, to live an outstanding life, obviously, making those decisions like you talked about, 100% authentically, not driven by your surroundings or the influences that you have on you or other people telling you that you actually can make these decisions on your own, to look within you to find out what you really love doing and start doing that and growing into the person that you really are. Well, congratulations firstly on the book and writing it.
Well, we
really
were very sneaky. We were very sneaky in the book, okay? Because so I currently have three of my 4 children sit in the target audience demographic. And here's the thing I know. They are self-interest motivated. And at this age, they are all in a hurry. They are all in a hurry to do everything and have it done by the time they're 30. So thus the tagline, how to set yourself up in your 20s to dominate in your 30s. That tagline is just so that they'll open the book. Truly.
Yeah, it's a great one.
Because you and I know that it takes a little bit longer than 30 to sort this stuff out.
Yeah.
But
you're giving them the tool nice and early in their life.
Exactly. We will giving them the best shot to have a real crack at creating an amazing life. But the whole book has been thought out in this regard. So even your chapter titles, they are talking to your young adult. Now, here's the other thing I know about this demographic. Generally speaking, they don't read. But they will listen and watch absolutely anything. We all know how much time they spend glued to social media. So at the beginning of each chapter, if they purchase the physical book, there is a QR code at the beginning of each chapter, which actually takes them to, the audio that you recorded of Trevor and I reading the book, because my gut is that is going to increase consumption 50% already on its own.
100%.
Because thanks to COVID, we all know what to do with a QR code, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
So And there's even a sealed section to add a bit of mystery, because, you know, if ever you want your child to try something immediately, just tell them they can't.
That's right. Exactly.
We all know that one.
That's what I'm thinking is the new social media laws coming into play about you can't go on it until you're 16. You know what kids want to do as soon as you say no.
Oh, that's it. That's it. So yes. So in an essence, whilst I hope it directly helps that age group, you know, the target audience for the book, I do know that it will be an extension to us being able to help those busy working couples. Because quite often when we have been busy and life's been out of balance and we haven't understood a fundamental principle that we talk about in the last 1%, which is love is spelt Time.
Yes, it is.
When we have neglected that, our relationships with our children suffer. And sometimes we get to 16 and it's then when we realise that perhaps we have not honoured what we say is that definition. Well, you've just got to invest. You've got to invest time.
Well, that's one thing Trevor was talking about. Yeah, he raved actually about you and your husband and how incredible your children are, how capable and how outstanding they are, and gave both of you the credit for bringing up such amazing children. Firstly, how did you do? I mean, I've got 3 children. I know it's tough, especially if you're working, but you're living in the middle of nowhere. You're running a cattle property. As is my understanding, you're working with Trevor, you're doing these courses, you're writing books, you're bringing up 4 incredible children. How do you do it? How do you do it all?
So first and foremost, I don't do it all. We do it all. So I have the most beautiful husband and father and man, and we're very fortunate to be part of a solid family unit in relation to our grazing enterprise. So we are part of a partnership with my husband's brother and his wife and my husband's mother and father, and everyone, through communication, mutual respect, a shared vision, works together really well. And so it's a cliche, but it is so true. It is a village. It has been a village that has raised our children. And as much as living rural remote creates some challenges in relation to distance and services that you can plug into and thus experiences for the children, here's the beautiful thing, is it is so much easier to create exactly the environment you want to raise your child in. So I can turn off the TV and I can choose not to put the radio on, and I can completely control any external chatter that at a very young age my children are exposed to, that I don't think is as easy. Definitely. For parents who live in the city, in urban metropolitan areas. So I am incredibly grateful and mindful of that. And I suppose by the time certainly our second or third child had come along, I'd done a lot of reading and a lot of study around around the brain and development. And so my husband and I fundamentally understood how important those young years were in cementing that subconscious mind and how that set that young child up to then progress through adolescence and into adulthood. But here's the interesting piece that we learnt, because I do not want people to go away from this interview thinking that we were perfect parents, because no one is.
No.
No one is. And do you know?
I think all parents know as soon as you say perfect parents, everyone knows it's not true.
But here's the thing. I know people will be listening to this, judging themselves. And I want to say to those people, lose the judgment, because as soon as you are parenting your children from guilt, you cannot turn up as the parent you want to be. You, to this point, to this moment in your life, have done the best that you have known to do, given the amount of sleep you've had, how well you've looked after yourself, the external things that are going on in your life. Give yourself credit for the fact that you have done the absolute best. My parents did the absolute best that they could do with the education, the self-awareness they had, all of the stuff that was going on for them. They raised us the best they could. I know that, absolutely. But here's the piece I wanted to talk about, Simone. When our oldest boy went to boarding school, we at that time read the most amazing book, and it's called Hold On to Your Kids. And it's a book now, when I stand in front of any room of parents, it is a book that I advocate every parent read. Hold On to Your Kids. Gabor Mate was one of the co-authors, and I think the other gentleman is Gordon Nuffield. Both psychologists. Gabor Mate was an expert in the field of addiction. He had done a lot of work with people suffering chronic addiction, drugs, alcohol, you name it. Gordon Nuffield, he was a child psychologist, and they met because Gabor Mate was having issues with one of his children, and they went into counselling. These men became great friends, and they wrote the book. The fundamental thing that absolutely changed how we parented our children is this. Certainly we were raised, and we took on the belief that as parents, we wanted to raise, and we wanted to create strong, independent young people. That was absolutely our focus as parents. And so we encouraged our kids to be independent at absolutely every juncture in their life. What these gentlemen unpack is the fact that our children want to naturally connect, and they call it attach to you as a parent. And so if we as parents don't fully look after the attachment needs of our children will then attach to other humans. And so in years gone by, when families and extended families all lived together, that was not so much of an issue. So if mum and dad were busy and disconnected and not looking after the attachment needs of those children, there was an aunt or an uncle, there was a grandfather, a grandmother, they would create attachments with those adults. And so the important piece that we have to understand is it's from that attachment that there is the ability to mentor and coach that young person. So it's relationship, you know. We have to have that connection to have relationship that then allows us to mentor these young children that become young adults. What these men beautifully unpack in the book is what we are experiencing now is something rather unprecedented in the history of our species. And that is, we no longer generally live in the developed world around a close, extended family. And so as parents, if we don't look after the attachment needs of our children due to mobile phones, social media, and the connectedness that enables for our children, they then connect and thus attach to their peer group. Suddenly, it is only the opinion of their peer group that matters, because that is whom they are the most attached to. And once that attachment has been created, it is so strong and so powerful. And often we see the results of that attachment gone bad on the 6 o'clock news. Because when that peer group turns upon them and they are the only individuals to whom their opinion matters, it's disaster. It is disaster. And they are attaching to a peer group that does not have the maturity and does not have the emotional capability to give them unconditional love, to forgive, to be empathetic. And so it was huge for us, because what we saw when we sent our first son to boarding school was how we hadn't quite looked after his attachment needs. Because when he was looking for support and attachment and comfort, we were predisposed to go, no, mate, like, you're right, like, you can handle this. So there's nothing abusive, there's nothing traumatic in what we were doing as parents. We were very lovingly encouraging him to be more independent than he was ready to be.
Great idea.
That's the piece. And what
then they rely on themselves.
Well,
which is fundamentally what it's all about, I guess.
Well, and what we didn't realise that is pointed out so beautifully in this book is if you look after your child's attachment needs, nature looks after their independence. So they naturally become more confident and more independent as you as a parent look after and focus on what is my child's attachment needs. And unfortunately, as parents, what we are up against is all of these sort of benchmarks and social expectations around how this beautiful little human is supposed to blossom. At what stage are they supposed to be independent? At what stage are they supposed to be comfortable in walking, in walking up the school steps themselves without the need for you? Who knows? Who knows? But if we're pushing that and we're forcing that, what we're not focused on is, hey, for whatever reason, this child is still looking to attach and needs my support. And if we look after that, we honour the attachment that we need. We desperately need that when they hit 13, 14, 15, 16, because they are incredibly vulnerable. They have, this is when their self-esteem issues are going to come to the fore, all of those sort of things. And if we've looked after attachment and connection and all of those sort of things, that's when you can be rest assured that they will come back to you and ask questions and have conversations. And it's the only safety net we've got as parents, truly. It is the safety net that you have full control over creating as a parent, is how are you looking after the attachment needs of your child? It was a revelation because we could see it playing out in real life. So our son, he attached so firmly and securely to his peer group when he hit boarding school. he didn't need or want us at all. Because he had completely attached to this peer group. Look, if his friends had stayed at boarding school for school holidays, he would have been there. Not because he didn't have a loving home, just simply we had not fully looked after his attachment needs. So all my husband and I did throughout his whole high school years, so 6 years of high school, was we just turned up, and every decision we made in relation to that young man was about how do we create stronger attachment with this child. Because we knew it was the only thing that was going to allow us the ability to mentor him going forward once he got out of boarding school.
Enlightening. So hold on.
And I'm happy to
kids.
say it worked. It worked fabulously. And I tell you what, we ran on faith. We ran on faith for 5 years, because for 5 years we just turned up and turned up. And what you have to understand as a parent is when you haven't honoured the attachment needs of your child and they have attached to that peer group,
it's hard to get them back.
They feel as though
they don't need you.
They're not looking to you.
That's right.
For anything.
Enlightening. So hold on to your kids, a book that you'd recommend.
Oh, 100%. 100%. And here I am recommending another book whilst I'm
Nail
playing.
It is your book. So Nail It is already out at Audible, and so is The Last 1%. The audiobooks, the print and the ebook. They're on your website.
They absolutely. So The Last 1% is front and center on our website, and the website is livingcourageously, it is a mouthful, livingcourageously.com.au, and Nail It can be found at livingcourageously.com.au/nail it. We have not quite got it on our homepage yet, but you can go directly to purchase a copy. Nail It's just all lowercase. So livingcourageously.com.au/nail it.
You can find out more about Juliane Cowan. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. It's been a pleasure chatting. All the best with everything, because you guys not only are authors, you are partners and you do workshops. You also do live speaking. Trevor does live speaking.
We do, yes. Well, basically, Simone, what we love to do is add value. And so if that's adding value from an event stage that plants seeds, gives people tools, gets people thinking, we're there.
Awesome. Okay. Well, livingcourageously.com.au, and thanks again, Juliane, for joining me on the Simone Feiler podcast.
Thank you, Simone.
Thank you. Thanks for joining the Simone Feiler podcast. What's your story? Contact Simone for a chat at brisbaneaudiobookproduction.com.